Before dive into the conversation, I just want to, thank Sarah for joining us today. She's not new to this. I've been, getting her guidance and, we've been working together on this. And when I was thinking of the topic for today, leading with from within and discovering your strength. And one of the focus for this is inside out leadership and personal transformation. And I was doing some research to find out who would be the best person to do this. And I've seen Sarah's journey over the last 20 years or more. And I met her long before I had, a lot of hair. I've lost my hair now. And I've seen her grow, not just personally, but professionally as well. So, we have Sarah with us today. She's an accomplished IT, an executive. She's an entrepreneur and also a certified empowerment and leadership life coach. So we are really, pleased to have you with us today. And I want to start with your personal journey and it's your personal journey and leadership. So Sarah, welcome to the session. And can you start by sharing with us, what strengths have shaped, who you are as a leader? Let's start from our strengths.
Sure. Thank you, Omdai, and thanks. Yeah, lovely to see everyone. But yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction as well.
Thank you.
So I guess that's a great question, right? So I guess when speaking of strength, for me, I would probably say, I guess there's few various strengths. I guess I have discovered about myself over the years. I would probably say just, one of the key strengths would be really just embracing my own vulnerabilities.
Mhm.
I remember, I guess, perhaps, many, this would probably go back about, I guess 15 years ago when I started in a professional journey, my leadership journey, right? I used to be very tough on myself in terms of, I would just beat up myself, we are human beings and we get emotional. We have various different emotions, right? Apparently we got about 108 different emotions. I was reading Brené Brown's, book, and that's what I was it was quite amazed, I was quite amazed to know that there's that many emotions. But anyway, I guess really just embracing our own vulnerabilities, it's a key. I
Mhm.
used to be very tough on myself,
Yeah.
and really, I guess, would be seeking other people's validation. I would see that
Mm-hmm.
as my weakness,
Yeah.
because sometimes you have, days where you're feeling low or, you can't always be you know, you can't have your head always high, right? Sometimes,
Yeah.
like, you have days like that, but I used to be always like tough on myself and really seek for other people's validation for, oh, okay, am I doing it right? Am I good enough, for example, right?
Mm.
So I think that's the greatest strength. I would probably say I'm still learning, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a learning phase. But I think first and foremost is really just being aware of uh,
Mm.
of that, of those moments, and really let yourself, just embrace that emotion. So I think that's one of the key strengths that I feel that has strengthened me as a leader. And I would probably say another one is just empathy, just
Okay.
showing empathy,
Mm-hmm.
not sympathy. So there's two different, like, people
Yeah.
often sort of get confused or get mixed up with, just see sympathy, and empathy. Empathy is, it's quite, sympathy is like you're basically feeling sorry for others. Empathy is like you're really putting yourself in their shoes and really seeing
Mm.
that from from your own eyes, right? And
Yeah.
really just showing that empathy, saying if someone's sort of going through hard times, then really
Mm.
relating yourself,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
being in their shoes and really showing that empathy in a way that, hey, I understand, sort of, I can feel your pain rather than, oh, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. So
Yeah.
there's difference to that.
Different. Yeah.
So I think that's also another key strength that
Mm,
I have learned, over the
okay.
years, and
Hmm.
really just be compassionate.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, so
That's a
those are
good.
probably the key
Yeah.
strengths.
And that's a really good lead into, when you say
Yeah.
compassionate, like, leadership is, like we talked about, leadership, going to a different, university
Mm,
and
mm,
leadership schools and learning things. But one of the thing I've realized is more starting with yourself. So when
yourself.
we say leadership by inside out approach,
Yeah.
now I just want to ask you, like, when did you first realize that, leadership begins with self?
Yeah.
And, can you please
Yeah.
share an experience of, starting with self? Because I've seen that
Yeah.
journey with you. I think, like how
Yeah.
you have transformed yourself.
That's an interesting one. So I guess how I would probably say that started when I decided to, so I'm a certified life coach, right? So I
Yeah.
started that about 4 years ago. So at that time, honestly, I didn't even know why I was doing that. So the main reason I sort of went, oh, I want to do the life coach is, because I knew that I needed to look for my purpose. So I knew that I needed to, you know, give back. And
Mm,
most of all, I needed to transform myself. So I guess that's how I started. And so when I did my life coaching, I mean, it was about 10 months of late night sort of study and
mm,
interactions from different parts of the world. And it was the best time.
mm,
I guess that's when I sort of transform, as a leader from, I guess that's how sort of I sort of transformed and I sort of realized that, okay, it actually starts from you.
okay.
So when I say start from you is really being aware of yourself
Okay.
and really listening to yourself. And then so I did things like sort of, like meditation and sort of
Okay.
yoga. So it's like sort of just working on yourself, So that's perhaps I would say,
Okay.
yeah,
Mm. And following from that, how do you
yeah.
actually balance personal values with community expectations? You touched on
Mm.
this previously earlier. So,
I think that I would probably say that just finding a common ground, because
mm,
you hold your own values. So really understanding and knowing what your values are and
mm,
really trying to align those values with community expectations, right?
mm,
I understand that, in different community, because often then, just knowing your values, often you'll find that there are common grounds. But
mm,
even if there are no common grounds, I don't see that. I don't take it as in a sort of in a negative way or anything. But I try to stay curious and
okay.
really sort of use my, give back using my own values,
Mm,
perhaps. Like I think really finding the common ground is quite important and really understanding what that community is formed, is about. Just like how your community is all about, right? I guess, I
mm,
can probably, this is probably the best, example is when I found out about this community group,
yeah.
I asked you the question
Yeah.
why, right?
Mm,
And when I found out when I could just relate. So
yeah.
how you said about it's not about seeking, it's about finding your strength. It's not just
Mm,
about the need. We know the need,
yeah.
in the community, but I think it's about just sort of finding your strength to see how we can I guess, fix those issues or
Mm,
those needs, right?
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
could really relate to that. And I think that I could align that with my value. So it's really
Yeah.
just aligning that, your values with the community values and really
Yeah.
understanding what the community is all about
Mm,
and really understanding how you can contribute or how I can contribute, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes just being that trigger to sort of change the way things are working in the community. So this is one thing we are learning because we have always gone to the community and said, "What I need, what do you need?"
Yeah.
Like we ask people, "What do you need?"
What do you need?
But then
Yeah.
we just change that narrative. Hey, what do you have?
Correct.
what's working well in
Wha-
this community? How can we support you to do more of
How
it?
can we
So this,
support? Correct. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's where we want to get to. So jumping onto the strength and purpose sort of thing,
Yeah.
like I think one of the things we come across people, or especially leaders, is like, you ask somebody, you meet somebody, hey, I've been so busy, like everybody
Mm,
is busy.
mm,
Now, what advice would you give to leaders who feel overwhelmed, or
mm.
uncertain about their own path?
Ah, right. Yeah, I know. We always say, busy. And I've used that, and honestly, I see that as just an excuse, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
busy, right? And so I've been guilty of just using that word many times, and I had to go, all right, I mean, surely you're busy. So I talk to myself a lot of the time. I talk to myself in the mirror and go,
Yeah.
all right, I mean, that's just an excuse, right?
Mm.
But I guess going back to your question, I would probably say really to those leaders who are overwhelmed is really to pause, take a pause, and
Mm.
step back and just be kind to yourself.
Okay.
I think we all
Hmm.
get so overwhelmed and we have a lot going on. And I think it's really important that you take a break or take a pause and just be
Mm.
nice to yourself, because I
Yeah.
think just because you're a leader doesn't mean you have answers to everything.
Mm.
We just got to
Yeah.
remember that we don't have answers to everything. We are human beings. I mean, we are all leaders of our own life.
Yeah.
So we are human being at the end of the day. So we're not going to have all the answers right away, right?
Mm.
That would be the first and foremost. And then second is really to seek for help, you know.
Mm.
I think it's really
That's
important that you, where, I mean, whether that's in your personal life, in your professional life, or in a community like this, um, you just have to reach out for help. I mean, that's
mm.
what the group is for. That's what the community is for. So we are always. So I think we need to make sure that we just seek out for help. Whether that's
Yeah.
through your mentor or through your team. So a
Mm.
lot of the times, I mean, again, that's something that as a life coach that I sort of learned is we don't give advice, right?
Mm.
A lot of everybody apparently they have answers within.
Yes.
So what we do as a life coach is we just guide them to really get that answers out of them.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Yeah.
the times, and me including myself, right?
Mm.
So I have to seek for that coaching sometimes, even if I'm a life coach. So I have that pressure as well. So I get overwhelmed, and sometimes I go, just because I'm a life coach doesn't mean I can't have the same feelings, right?
Mm.
Or I'm gonna have all the answers for you. So I think it's important that you take a pause, take a break, and just remember that you
Mm.
don't have the answers. You don't need to know everything.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and
And I
just
really like
mm,
your, talking about the advice, like, you don't want to advise people, rather, like if you learn to ask questions,
yeah,
you can find answers from the people
correct.
themselves.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's a
Asking the
way to sort of,
questions.
yeah,
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
question is actually, I learned the hard way, working with young people, because uh, when you are in that advising mode,
Mm,
you are, challenged by, hey, who are you?
who are you?
Who are you to
Yeah,
ask those
yeah,
questions? But if you
absolutely.
sort of turn that around, advise them, or turn that around and say, what do you love doing? What are your
Yeah,
passion? And like we start asking questions,
yeah.
the
What's
answers will come
important
from
for you,
within as well. Yeah.
Yeah, why are
Mm,
you doing that? Why do you want to do
mm,
that? Yeah, I mean, yeah, all those
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
questions, correct? Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up, finally, talk about strength again. Like, how can identifying strengths help us build more inclusive communities?
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
Right. So I would perhaps say I think knowing first of all, like how we talked about identifying your strengths. So once you know your
Mm.
strengths, you can align your strengths with the values that you have. And then that way you can sort of give back to the community in a
Mm.
more authentic way
Yeah,
because it would just come naturally for you.
yeah.
So I think it's all like all the questions that that you've asked
Mm.
you know previously, I think that all comes together in
Yeah.
how then identifying your strengths, how then you can give back to the community, right? But I think it's like
Mm.
knowing your strengths, just being aware and
Yeah.
just knowing your strengths, and then you can align with your values, and then you can sort of give it back in the
Yeah.
most authentic or most effective way. So I think community such that, I think going back to this particular community group that you have formed
Mm.
online, right? Just imagine, like even in this group, like we got about, 10, 12 people here, right? We
Yeah.
all have something to give back. We all have strength,
Mm.
right? So knowing
Yeah.
that strength and imagine like we all come together with those strengths,
Hmm.
how stronger this community is
It
going
would
to
be.
be,
Yeah.
right? So I think once you identify, I think it's going to take some time
Yes,
to
it
really
will.
understand
Yeah.
what that strength is that you have.
Hmm.
But once you know it,
Yeah.
I think you can sort of just give it back in a, in a very authentic way to the community.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you very much.